Hey there, welcome to episode 102 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 2:04 p.m. on Tuesday, January 28, 2025. Today we are going to talk about inclusivity, diversity, and accessibility. No and. The title, Inclusivity, Diversity, Accessibility. Why put an and in there? They're all just kind of one word. Episode 102, we're nearing the end of the season 1. We started with season 0, of course. Very exciting. DEI and now DEIA has been in the headlines more so recently. Maybe less so present in the workplaces and in our federal government at least. So we'll see how that shakes out. But today we're going to speak about our view. And this is something we started off with from day 0 when we were forming the then Code for Vegas Foundation, when we were rebooting the original Code for Vegas, and these persist today in the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. So I thought I might mention, it's topical, our views on inclusivity, diversity, and accessibility. So hopefully, wherever you, before I mention that, if you're not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, our purpose, which is on file with the IRS and all the other government bodies, when you form a nonprofit corporation, you pretty much have to, in Nevada, pretty much have to spell out your purpose statement, and then that all gets filed with the IRS for our charity determination. Our purpose in writing, to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Purposely vague. And I'm sure somebody looked at that and said, okay, sure. But our goal was and is to not be overly specific, because innovation can take many forms, which we'll kind of touch on today. And elevating communities is fairly non-specific. It could be anything. And not everything is code. Even though we were Code for Vegas when we started, that we evolved quickly. So hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you are able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, therein, a summary, which I will read, and our usual 4 links. I was pondering linking to some DEI-related materials or definitions and whatnot, but I'm only going to describe our implementation of our 3 tenets, our 3 pillars of our ethos, I suppose you could say. So no additional links necessary. The 4 links are the same 4 links as last week. They're the general kind of go-to collection. I'll run through them more quickly this time, but they're links. You can visit them anytime you like. So on that note, let us begin with the summary. The DEI is making headlines, as I mentioned. Some are sticking with it. Some are tossing it out. It is simple and complicated. Our foundation has always taken a scaled down approach, making inclusivity, diversity, and accessibility our goals, and we will continue to do that. But what does that mean? Let's talk about it. The links for today's episode include the Innovate for Vegas Foundation homepage, Innovate for Vegas, that's FOR, innovateforvegas.org. You can visit that homepage. I just edited a couple more things on it. I need to change the layout and break it up into a couple pages so it's not one big page full of text. That's coming. In fact, this week is my grindstone week. If you happen to listen to, I don't know if I've mentioned it here on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. I'm trying not to mix my personal content and promotion and whatnot, but I have a micro episode that I publish on Monday mornings, and this week is Grindstone Week. So I was mentioning that. It's a 5-minute episode, so not a lot of time to get into detail, but essentially there's a whole bunch of things on my list. There's a whole list of to-do items, and tuning up our Innovate for Vegas homepage so it's not so menacing, so overwhelming, so dense is certainly on the list somewhere. projectact.info. That's project-act.info. The Autonomous Cohort Tessellation is a initiative that we started out
as within Innovate for Vegas Foundation, and it is it will spin out to a separate initiative. I guess it technically is. It has its own repository on GitHub and so on. The tessellation, a mosaic, where each tile in the mosaic is a cohort of one or more people working on, could be civic volunteerism or maybe some similar stuff. And then there could be tiles for their actual initiatives and projects and other efforts. The goal of the tessellation is, or the mosaic if you like, but the tessellation is to make discovery easier, whether you're participating as a civic volunteer or maybe you are looking for what people are doing, who's working on what in the world. So discovery, but between cohorts and related to what they're pursuing, the goal is to make it easier to connect, communicate, and collaborate. So using old ways, old methodologies, decentralization. Hey, that's a new word, isn't it? Nope, it's been around for a while. So decentralized, bottom-up, so self-directed, opt-in. So no top-down central planning, no central authority, no membership application to fill out. It's driven by some automation, some text files. Now we can make use of some machine learning, and so we can make old and new, bring them together again. projectact.info. There will be a lot more on that as a couple of things get into a usable state. Agileforvolunteers.org, Agile for Volunteers, all one word, FOR spelled out, is our take on agile methodologies from 2001, created by and for software engineers. But how about if we employees of companies? So how about if we take those original principles and apply them to volunteers who are not working 40 hours plus per week for a paycheck, but rather when their time allows for their own reasons, and apply not only for software development, but also for any effort, any contribution of time, effort, and expertise towards initiatives and component projects, which we, for example, are pursuing for our community elevation purpose. So we've spun that out so others might contribute to it if they like, or participate, or learn, or apply it and change it as they like, etc. So these are all open source projects, initiatives. And finally, Mastodon for Vegas, also on the to-do list this week. The time is right to turn out a decentralized, geo-focused Mastodon instance for Vegas. Mastodon for Vegas, mastodon.vegas, coming soon. But no, really, I mean it this time. It's been like over a month that it's been on the to-do list, but it's not like there isn't a Mastodon server out in the world. So making one for Vegas is high on the priorities. As it turns out, we are really going to lean into federation, decentralized distribution, and following and notifications, but also different types of content and so on as part of our MyMuni initiative. So this will all fit into that general realm. So that's where we can leave the link section. On with the show, getting started. When we rebooted Code for Vegas in 2022, it was actually January when we literally had our first conversations. Like, you know what we should do? We should bring back Code for Vegas. We intended to be something of a free-for-all, inviting anyone who wanted to join in to do so, with hopes that we could be inclusive and diverse in that participation. Everybody's welcome. Now, drawing potential civic volunteers into an open source community elevation environment proved to be something of a challenge here in Greater Vegas, but also in general. There's just been maybe a refractory period in the universe of civic volunteerism and doing things for free. Volunteering in general is not at the top of everyone's agenda, with some other chaos in the world happening. So while we are still inclusive and diverse in our ethos, and in fact, this accessibility is that third one, and aspiration, in practice, it is not so easy to be inclusive and diverse if people don't want to, and in fact do not, show up. So the doors are open, but the crowd has not quite appeared. We can give it time. We're in no rush. We're not going to go out of business. In the meantime, add accessibility in all ways to those two. So the third pillar, accessibility, including real-world and virtual world accommodation of special needs and other considerations, from addressing physical barriers to pursuing and implementing digital accessibility standards online. So as we say, not everything is code, so not everything is digital accessibility. Sometimes it's getting around town. And Vegas certainly has, the greater Vegas area certainly has some accessibility challenges that could still be addressed. But we'll talk about that I think I've talked about that in a previous episode. We'll talk about that again. So first of all, it's right there in our logo. If you've ever looked at our logo, which on today's cover art is oversized, usually it's tucked down in a corner, but it's the star of the show today. If you visit our website, it's at the bottom. If you scroll down to the very bottom of the homepage, and I think this will always be true for the near term anyway. But in general, you can find our logo there, large version of our logo, and it floats around. In designing a logo, hey, my first typo. In designing a logo, a tiled or badged approach seemed to make sense, with hexagonal or hex tiles for those for our the three pillars and other pursuits. So they'd be symbols that would be recognizable and integrated into our messaging and our pursuits and our ethics and so on. And fun fact, the innovateforvegas.org website and logos and so on are essentially our business site. Yes, we're a nonprofit, but for the purposes of IRS filings and interacting with other cohorts and other organizations and potential partners and so on, collaboration partners, there has to be a business. We are a Nevada nonprofit corporation, indeed. So having a business logo that highlights what we're trying to accomplish makes sense. It's not necessarily artistic. It's not overly creative. But that's why we have a completely separate sort of entry. I called it the forkening when we were going to break everything into code and not code. I'm a coder, so give me a break. It's everything is either code or not code. No, so I called it the forkening, which was we're going to be Code for Vegas, but we're going to split up into Code for.Vegas and Create for.Vegas. So the non-code stuff would be Create for Vegas. We literally had those two domain names. So Innovate for Vegas, we renamed innovateforvegas.org, and then Code for.Vegas, Create for.Vegas. We're going to be the two entrances to our main collaboration space, the main dining room. So generally speaking, the business side has this logo I'm describing, and the multiple entrances would hopefully get some motivation going for some more creative logos for the different, you could say, teams or focus areas. Now we've ditched the two sides of the coin, and now it's for.Vegas, so it could be anything. So we can come up with logos all day for different groups, and the for.Vegas platform is designed to celebrate and recognize civic volunteers here in Vegas that are doing things. So enough about that. The symbology is not necessarily obvious, but if we look at our logo, and again, you can see it on the website. And by the way, if you're listening to this in the future and the logo is not at the bottom of the homepage, there will almost certainly be a press kit or logo link to get the full size version, so you can examine it closely if you like. So if we orient ourselves like a clock, standard clock, 12-hour, in the 11 o'clock position, the logo on our homepage as of this moment does not have a tile in that space. It should have like a World Wide Web globe, maybe the old Netscape Navigator logo icon, something similar to that, like a globe with some data encircling it. So the 11 o'clock position is the logo. It tells you where you're finding our logo. So our podcast icon, if you look at the cover art for this episode, has a little kind of the usual symbol for a podcast. If you go to Discord, our Discord server icon is our logo with a little Discord icon in the 11 o'clock position, and so on. If you go to 12 o'clock, directly top middle, inclusivity. I know some people say inclusion. It's a pair of hands holding up infinity. That's everybody. So everybody, come on down. I'm simplifying it. I'll get to the detailed exploration of these in a moment. At the 1 o'clock position, diversity, a big table for people from all corners. So it's basically a table with all kinds of people. And I will point out, by the way, that our logo exists as an SVG, a scalable vector graphics base, I guess you could say. So it's been rendered to a black and white PNG file. But remember, redesigning website, when the SVG version is actually published natively, we can style all the different components of our logo differently. So we could literally have different colors, different transparencies, and so on. So the idea there was to have our entire logo reflect awareness of holidays and seasons and other recognition of other times or anything. So the diversity table could have some sort of representation of actual diversity through color diversity. I know it's kind of the low-hanging or easy low-hanging fruit approach, but symbology, it is what it is. In the 2 o'clock position, accessibility, it's a combination, and it's easy to see once you see it. It's a combination of the physical accessibility icon, which, if you've ever seen it, is typically the standard wheelchair silhouette, sort of the simplified, kind of a 3/4 wheel person. It's a stick figure person seated with handles. And so the physical accessibility icon is that, but sort of in motion, so leaning forward, and the wheel has 2 slots taken out of it. So we take the wheel, and then in the middle is the digital accessibility icon, which is a little human form, generic human, stick figure style human. On the other side, at the 10 o'clock, is ideation, to identify problems and gaps. That's what the ideation. Remember our ideation, ideate, innovate, and implement. 9 o'clock is innovation, to solve problems and gaps. So that's the typical light bulb with the gears, like coming up with, I have an idea. So ideation is like spitballing, brainstorming. Innovation is, here's something we could try, or here is something that might work. And then in the 8 o'clock position, implementation, putting the pieces together to implement solutions and close those gaps. So it's essentially like putting together a little puzzle. Add the universal open source logo back at the sort of inboard 11 o'clock position. So that's just open source. I think it's usually green or on a green background, so we can do that with our SVG styling when we publish that as a SVG file. And the state of Nevada with the classic starburst that you may see or recognize from the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas, indeed. We've all seen that. And it's the starburst is placed directly over Las Vegas on the map. And I got as close as humanly possible based on comparing the Nevada state silhouette that appears in that tile and the actual offsets from the edges and so on. So as close as possible to sitting right directly over Las Vegas proper. Where is Las Vegas, by the way? Who knows? Nobody knows for sure. Our logo appears to have some extra real estate for additional tiles. That's true. It almost looks like it's not done yet, but then what really is when it comes to civic volunteerism? As we build our teams, we can decide what else should be in there, and the logo is designed to be modular, like that icon at 11 o'clock. Intended to vary based on where the logo is used, also for sites like LinkedIn, so that our presence in these virtual places is deliberate. So when we're going to, actually, whenever there's a post on LinkedIn, or if you visit our LinkedIn business page, it has the LinkedIn logo there because that logo is appearing in that context. So we can conceivably alter those extra real estate tiles based on the specific projects that the logo is attached to, or this initiatives, or collaboration with other groups, and so on. So the core tile set appears in our logo today. Physical manifestations could have similar iconography. So if it's printed on a T-shirt or a sticker, we could indicate that it's a physical, or a little T-shirt, or the icon for a sticker or something. Keep it fun. All of this is to be determined by whole team. So collaboration is always possible within reason. because once you start spending money on printing things, got to be careful, a little bit careful at least. We're not rich. So each of our pillars, inclusivity, I know everybody says inclusion, but this ends with ITY, like diversity and accessibility. So inclusivity, diversity, accessibility, it almost rhymes. Making up words is legal, so we start off here connecting our origin as Code for Vegas and the fact that non-coders did not feel this was an effort they could be a part of, or really the feeling was Code for Vegas was not for them. Even though I say this all the time, not everything is code, but true story. I'm not a coder, so I can't participate in this, right? And no, that's not the intention. So the legacy, the history of the Code for Vegas organization was implied in our, rebooting with the same name. But, if your brand is sending people away, the very people that are interested and should not be sent away, it's time for a recalculation. Our name change to Innovate for Vegas Foundation from Code for Vegas Foundation, which was a reboot of the original Code for Vegas, was intended to be more inclusive, specifically along with fitting into the use of the term innovation in the greater Vegas area, including the Innovation District and the Innovate Vegas, all one word, hashtag branding that didn't get very far a couple of years ago, but who knows? I still use it from time to time because it kind of goes with our name, almost by design eventually. Generally speaking, we are an inclusive organization, generally speaking. Though we are also not a school, nor are we a social club. We welcome those who would like to be a part of the whole team approach to all of our initiatives and planning and execution and so on, implementation. To mentor sometimes, learn other times, collaborate and elevate all the time. So you're welcome to be a part of that, but historically, in our 2.5 years of existence since we rebooted in June of 2022 officially, when we formed our nonprofit, occasionally people expect a certain amount of tutoring, perhaps, or to hang out and I'm not actually going to do anything. So we can be inclusive to a point, but at the same time, to be respectful and mindful of the time of other volunteers, it's sort of an attempt to keep a level playing field in all respects, if that makes sense. Diversity, on the surface, this means what it says, and what most people think it means, a diverse collection of civic volunteers from all corners, whether that means all corners of the ethno-cultural world, which I think is the usual presumption, but also skills and interests, experiences, and insights. This is where the emphasis on the fact that not everything is code is essential, because a room full of individuals with a common focus like code will tend to treat everything as a coding problem with a coded solution. The real world, and this is where we are aiming in our community elevation efforts, is far more interesting than this. You might even say diverse. So diversity will ideally bring different viewpoints and those experiences and insights that may lead the coders to push away from the keyboard a little bit, so to speak. Nothing wrong with coders. I am one. But the onion has many layers. The gem has many facets. Pick your favorite metaphor. Diversity ultimately will bring more creative solutions. It will bring better ideas. It will bring a more interesting, unexpected perhaps, novel innovation. Innovation is the thing. And accessibility, this has recently been added to the public discussion, which is strange. It should have been the whole time, which before was DEI, if we're talking branding, and is now evolving to DEIA. So accessibility, like diversity, means a couple of things within our organization. Internally, we want to make sure we account for our civic volunteers and our collaborators, so that they can participate. The internet has solved language translation, screen readers, and voice transcription well enough to get started. And we always had our in-person gatherings in an accessible location, which was even reachable by bus, bicycle, or generally without the need for a car. So these seem like small gestures, but they all combine into a mindset, I would like to think. Our website is structured to hopefully make translation or localization, as the word goes, L10N, Localization should be reasonably doable, and then making sure our websites are screen readable, our content, and then eventually our applications and our other deployments. Everything we do should be screen readable, digitally accessible, voice transcribable, etc. And luckily, the technology has really enabled a lot of these things. So it's really a question of internally being mindful and aware and putting these things into practice so that we just do them. There should not be the notion that we'll just add later. Like, why not start from the beginning and presume the person looking at the open transit mobile application might be vision impaired. Maybe that's why they're taking public transit. That's a true story, by the way. That's a longer story, which I've actually talked about previously with regard to public transit in the greater Vegas area, and so on. So yes, we sort of, for as young as we are and as few people as we have, best efforts, best foot forward, as they say. Best efforts so far, and hopefully always improving, always reflecting to improve. Since we endeavor to elevate our communities, we would hope to make our efforts accessible to others. So my transit example, for example, with attention paid to the current state of accessibility out in the world, as in what works and what doesn't today, and consideration of the state as we pursue our initiatives. So what could we do to change things, make them more apparent so that they will be addressed? I've had a street corner that I used to before I moved. Where I moved now, it's still I can walk over to this street corner, but I used to walk through this intersection every day almost, where I used to live, and fairly high traffic intersection. The crosswalk button for pedestrians, the ADA compliant ramp, have between them landscaping with basically bricks and ridiculously dangerous, even for the most sure-footed person, ridiculously dangerous rock landscaping. It's almost like lava rock. Like they're not packed. They wobble around. So if you were to step on these rocks, you would risk falling generally. So if you're in a wheelchair, a walker with a cane, crutches, generally not able to walk across these rocks or properly reach across, you can't press that crosswalk button. So one would ask, did they do this on purpose? That's crazy. So drawing attention to what you could say are bugs in our accessibility for the normal person under whatever circumstance they're trying to get around our fair city, our oasis in the desert, we should shine a light on these things and fix them. And then also into the future, be aware and account for things that we could do from the beginning. And like I said earlier, internally, why not start from the beginning instead of waiting? So this intersection has been like this for at least 11 years, I think. So nobody says anything. And if you submit something to Public Works, are they just going to say, oh, no, not to be fixed? So it might be a question of amplification of voices and so on, because accessibility, as it turns out, is always important. It's just that some people don't discover that until later. But start now. We will endeavor to try, address the things that we can point to and shine a light on. But if we start internally and we pay attention to these things, we can apply this awareness externally, and hopefully the things that we endeavor to do will be accessible to others and will encourage accessibility in general into the future. So what about equity? What about the E in DEI? We don't have E. Well, first, there is always some confusion between equality and equity. Our 3 pillars already mentioned are aiming for equality in participation, while we have nowhere near the resources to pursue equity of outcomes. Our organization is not anti-equity by any means, though one must be careful, I think, when committing to equity, especially if equality, see how easy it is? They're almost equal, especially if equality, it's just the implications, especially if equality is the actual goal. So as an all-volunteer organization, we can pursue equality through our own intentions, our code of conduct, our other policies, and our whole team approach to the way we collaborate on our initiatives. Equity is something pursued by others and other organizations, or that some are. Now, I guess fewer are today, as of recently, which we can support through our efforts, perhaps. But equity of outcomes requires a certain amount of investment, a certain amount of resource, a certain amount of time, and perhaps even individual team members, DEI resources in general, and those programs are being cut. So, we'll see how things turn out. But as an all volunteer public charity, we just aren't that big. We don't have the resources to focus on equity, which would be measuring equity of outcomes. I know it sounds like a hand wave, but the principles of equality, so equal access to, it's kind of right there in the name, equal access to resources, equal access to participation, centrally located locations, centrally located venues. How about that? For our hackathons, the ability to get around without depending on a car, so placed near public transit and bike routes and so on. So these are efforts to make it possible, reasonable, let's even say easy, to pursue and implement our other three pillars. If we pursue equality through these other three pillars, we avoid the potential confusion in messaging and setting of expectations. If we leave the E off of our three-letter declaration, so that our inclusivity, diversity, and accessibility fit into the scope and scale of what we're trying to accomplish without sending the wrong message. So keeping it simple without sacrificing our pursuit of the three pillars, which all, another typo, which all imply and include equality internally and through our initiatives and other activities externally. So essentially, a lot of LYs here. Equality through our inclusivity, diversity, and accessibility efforts is sort of spread through each of the three and connected together. All of them are an effort to be equal in access. Anyone who would like to participate, and then internally, and then anyone who will hopefully benefit from our efforts externally, our customers, if you like, should feel as though we've tried to enable equality of access. So by making our initiative outputs accessible, we are hopefully enabling anyone who would like to use what we're doing. They should be able to. Can we guarantee equity of outcomes for people, or through the ways that people are using what we're trying to develop or we're endeavoring to deploy to elevate our communities? We don't have the resources to properly measure and evaluate and then take action on those things. Can we provide equity internally? Well, we're not a school. We don't have teachers. We don't have the resources to guarantee that everyone is moving along at a pace and so on. So that the equity term is a little bit loaded and then could put us in a precarious position if that's the implication or the understanding, which is not what we're trying to share. So essentially, the goal is to have equality of participation, equality of access, spread through our other three pillars, and to be a fundamental principle. Equity of outcomes is something that other larger organizations with more resources might be pursuing. Certainly a school would like to have all students, be successful on their graduation day or whatever the point in time is, the milestone. The resources, the curriculum, all of the infrastructure around that, very different from what we're doing. So to keep it clear, to keep it simple, if you will, our three pillars include equality, and we leave equity to larger, more resourced pursuits. So hopefully that's all clear. Anyway, so we have a lot of work to do. It'd be great to have more people doing it. And so the way you accomplish that is to invite more people who want to participate. So hopefully we've set those expectations accordingly. And now the next thing is to instill a sense of FOMO, fear of missing out, so that those who are curious will actually take the plunge, or those who are slightly interested might look at what we are accomplishing, which is the key word there, and decide that this might be something they'd like to check out. So if people are interested, we certainly don't want to send them away. But at the same time, there is a balance between being welcoming and then taking on more than we have the resources for. So it's all a careful balance. All of this is a work in progress, all of it conceived with the best intentions, and so far so good. And that's where that is. My voice is holding out pretty well. The weather in Vegas has been good. My sinuses have been okay, but today, this morning, or this afternoon, not 100%. So thanks for bearing with me, and thanks for listening. Hopefully this all made sense, and that's it. We can always talk about all these things more. By the way, we do have office hours on Thursdays. If you visit our website, you'll see our gatherings calendar. Thursday, usually, every week, unless it's marked as canceled. So I'm pretty consistent with marking events as canceled ahead of time. But if you visit our gatherings calendar on our homepage, or linked from our homepage if it's not actually on the homepage, the gatherings calendar includes our office hours on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time, online, virtual meetup, and we'll go from there. If you have questions, or if you are just more interested in this stuff, or if you want to form your own cohort somewhere, anything goes. That's where we're going to leave it today. Thank you so much for listening, as always. Cheers.